Well, September retail sales just crossing the tape, up 0.6%. That was very much in line with expectations. Joining us right now is Trump campaign senior economic advisor and NCMA Global founder, David Malpass. David, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. First, give me your take on the retail sales number, up 0.6%.
Hi, Maria. Well, auto sales is dominating that, and so they were strong. But in July and August, retail sales were weak. I think the consumer is just still feeling the weakness of personal income. Wages haven't been going up, and so there's just not that much money to be spending within the economy. So it's an okay number. The bigger issue for the election is Trump's saying 4% growth. Clinton is basically accepting the idea that the U.S. economy is only going to grow 2% for the next 10 years. That, to me, is just unacceptable as a way to run the economy.
So we get the producer price index out as well, up 0.3% for September. Also, sort of a non-event. This is more of the same, James, right? The retail sales number?
Yeah, it's it's the humdrum, slow growth, sluggish, whatever adjectives you want to put on it. We've never gotten a breakout, even though I guess we're heading toward the end of this recovery. I don't know, maybe, but we just never were able to break out into that, what I would call American-style economic growth.
So go through both candidates' economic plans for us and tell us if either of them helps break out of this malaise that we're in terms of growth.
Trump is proposing major change. So that means a tax cut. That means regulatory reform, energy reform, so the U.S. can produce a lot more energy. The U.S. has one of the best resources of energy reserves in the world, the best, and could be producing a lot more. And then on trade reform, the policies that have been negotiated don't work for American workers. And so the big changes would cause 4% growth. Clinton, on the other hand, remember, is proposing and actually running on the idea of a big tax increase, of more regulation, and is accepting of slow growth. They're not challenging at all. Right now, the CBO forecast is for 2% or below for the next 10 years, meaning define that as a malaise. That's a really bad malaise, and they aren't challenging that at all. They're saying, okay, that's the best we can do.
David, I thought one of the best moments for Donald Trump Sunday night was when he was talking about his tax plan, and he was talking about taking America's corporate income tax from among the worst in the world, the highest in the industrialized world, and making it among the most competitive. Is he going to talk more about that on the trail now? Or maybe he is, and I'm just not seeing it in the clips that get played, but is that going to be a focus?
So I see the whole transcripts. There's just not enough on growth in it. So yesterday he did talk about 4% growth, 25 million jobs, and the 3 words jobs, jobs, jobs. But I think he could go on for 15 minutes, for half an hour. His plan is really twice as good as Clinton's. That's even an 4% growth versus 2% growth. You can say a lot better. And so I think there's room to talk about it. It would improve the themes that haven't been brought up yet. It improves the fiscal stance of the U.S. We've got a $20 trillion debt almost. And so the only way to improve that is through faster growth. And it also would improve the dollar. We could end up having the dollar be a trustworthy currency again, which it's not right now.
This is the first time I've heard of these things in very many days.
And that's the central problem. In terms of health care and Obamacare, is Trump talking enough about that? Because when Kellyanne Conway first signed onto the campaign, she was adamant that your coverage is worse, your premiums are higher, your out-of-pocket is higher, people are losing their providers. They have to make decisions this month about their health care next year. You have a lot of these insurance companies dropping out of state plans. But you have not heard enough about that. Why not?
Yeah, for one, I think
on the campaign trail, at rallies, even in the advertising, I expected, based on what Kellyanne said and her polling of women, that's a real hardcore issue for women across the country, and you just haven't heard much of it out of the Trump campaign.
Right, and all of these issues are good for women in that lots of women are moms whose children are having a hard time finding a job, and so if you had faster job growth, the importance of that is you bring up people from the bottom. Obamacare, same way. It plays to suburban women. Everybody's got this problem with health care. You know, it's hard for him to develop. It's got to be done state by state. And so if you're at a rally in Pennsylvania, you know people are hurting based on health care, but it's got to be tailored to each state. And so there's a little bit of a block in doing that.
Quite frankly, Bill Clinton did a better job on the campaign trail bashing Obamacare than Trump has.
Yeah, that's a great
Even though
point.
their solution is a public option.
You're absolutely right. He's not talking about the issues that are important to the American people enough. Now, I recognize she's putting him on defense, and that's the issue. He's got to constantly come on stage and defend and explain whatever it is.
In the primaries, though, people were doing that, and he was able to avoid it and keep going on offense.
So that pivot is important, and in the debate, it'll be important. If she attacks him, he says, look, you've been in office for 30 years, and look at the results, both on foreign policy, giant disaster, and on economic policy, giant disaster. Small businesses, we're seeing some of the news this morning, are just hurting all over. They can't find the workers that they need. They can't get the loans that they need, and so they're just checking out basically of the economy. And that, I think, is a direct result of bad policy. Trump's policies are aimed specifically at having small businesses do a lot better.
Look at this poll. According to new Fox News poll numbers, Trump has a 5-point advantage over Clinton when it comes to the economy. So, you know, his message of an economic plan of lowering taxes, rolling back regulations, tapping into energy, redoing trade deals that are not advantageous to America, it is resonating. And yet, it probably could be resonating a lot more if he would just talk more about it.
Think about the rally speeches. So he's going to be doing 2 today. They're big, and there's huge crowds. People want to hear what he has to say. And so it's almost a little bit like shelf space. There's so many things that he wants to convey in these speeches. One is defense of himself. One is an attack on Hillary Clinton. And so you run out of space. And so the challenge here is to get enough space in those speeches to talk about this key issue.
Let me ask you this real quick. What does the economy look like in the next 4 years if Hillary Clinton is president?
So she has said she's going to raise the capital gains tax rate. She's going to raise the estate tax rate. Remember, capital gains, she's extending the holding period for long-term gains. That is a giant negative for asset prices within the U.S. And the estate tax is hard. On the small business front, there's no relief proposed for the regulations and for the bank lending standards that would allow small businesses to get loans. What they're doing, small businesses, are having to go to this non-bank sector, which is really expensive and is elitist, if you think about it.
So how does she get away with constantly, and it is constantly, saying that she's helping small business? She says that constantly.
But that's so the federal government is so big that they can claim that they're making lots of loans themselves. To me, you know, the 10th Amendment of the Constitution was that if the federal government is not explicitly allowed to do it, it should be reserved to the people and to the states. And so we've moved way away from that, where the federal government lends through the Small Business Administration, the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are part of the government, and on and on. So they can claim that the federal government is taking care of the nanny state comes up, that they're taking care of everybody in the country. And the problem is it doesn't add up on the numbers. You can't run a country without a profit motive.
Well, and those numbers, you look at in the wake of the recession, more businesses closing than being started. And that was a big change in America, and we're still seeing it. It's that lack of new business creation. Or I guess I should ask you, how much of that, how big is that in this problem we're looking at?
Yeah, it's giant. History shows us that the best spot for new workers to get a job is in a new business, and the formation is basically half of what it used to be. And so that means there's just not jobs for young people coming into the economy. Trump gave a millennial speech yesterday and said that. Well, my plan will be better for young people, and he needs to say that more, I think.
Well, we'll keep watching that. David, thank you. David Malpass there. As Clinton opens up her national lead, Trump is focused on swing states, including Florida and the large portion of Cuban-American voters there.